Aloha. Today, me and my son Jacob, my name's Amadeo Markov, we're going to be doing a video on the proper techniques to slaughter a wild pig at home using utensils that pretty much anybody will have. Some of the items that we're going to be using today are about safety and other are about proper butchering techniques. The most important thing to do is that when you're dealing with wild pigs, there are blood-borne pathogens that can get into your skin. So if you have any open wounds, you should probably not process wild meat or even domestic meat in Hawaii for that matter. The primary disease that we have to worry about is brucellosis. And while it's not fatal 99.9% of the time, I believe it can cause serious illness and certainly make you feel sick, like you have flu. So we recommend that you wear eye protection. I have mine built in, but my son will be wearing sunglasses. And then rubber gloves for blood-borne pathogens are imperative. In addition, you're going to be working with sharp knives, so we recommend that people that are less experienced use these anti-cut gloves, and you can order these off of Amazon for like 10, 15 bucks. We've got several different knives that we use. It's good to have a boning knife or a long skinny knife, especially for bleeding the pig. And then, of course, skinning knives. And some folks will actually split the pig. We're not going to be doing that today, but you can use a machete or a cleaver. Doesn't have to be one this large. And then, of course, you're going to dispatch the pig most times with a firearm. A 22 caliber rifle is plenty. That's all you need. But for a lot of folks who live in subdivisions, it becomes an issue of non-compliance with local laws and, of course, neighbors being concerned with gunshots. If you're doing pig eradication on large parcels, as long as you let the police know ahead of time what you're going to be doing, most times it's fine. In the event that you need to bind the pig, so to speak, what you can do is you can lasso one or two legs or actually hog tie it, as the phrase goes, and then handle it with a knife such as this. Once you shoot the pig, usually right behind the ear or right in the forehead, you'll need to bleed it. And so we use this knife to actually go through its throat all the way to its jugular, and then we invert the pig and bleed it out that way, because you want as little blood in the meat as possible when you go to butcher. I recommend that you have a stone or a kila that you can use during the butchering process to keep your knives sharp. We probably sharpen our knives 5 or 6 times at least during a typical animal. We caught this very tame and nice looking sow about 3 days ago. We kept it on the trailer in the cage with a tent over it, and we gave it lots of water. We gave it lots of coconuts. We take dried coconuts or the brown ones and chop them up and feed it to them. And then also we gave it a little bit of cracked corn just a few days ago to kind of clean out its system, so that if there was any contaminants in the pig, it kind of scrubs it out through their digestive tract. So I like to clean out the trap right before we shoot, and of course hose the pig down as best as I can. I don't want to give it too much water because I don't want its urinary tract to swell up. I pay particularly attention to the feet because they stand around and you don't want poop or cross-contamination. Also the area around their neck where we're planning on stabbing them, and then where their privates are as well. So we're going to shoot it either straight on the forehead or behind the ear. Once we shoot it, we have to move really fast. We have to open the door, hook up a strap to its back leg and drag it out and get it the throat cut and get it inverted as fast as possible. So you want to pay particularly attention to the wound in its neck so that it stays clear and blood can continue to drain while it's inverted. And then you're going to be, processing around its genitalia and its belly, so you want that area clean as well. So what I like to do is use like a kitchen scrubber. Obviously this should be a a scrubber that's only used for this purpose. But right where your incisions are, you want to make sure that you clean those areas extra well. And of course, you want to get it out of the trap so that the trap is usable again. So now we're gonna put the pig on a table and tie its 4 limbs down so that we can proceed with the degutting. Obviously, not everybody has a tractor that they can use, but if you have a couple, big guys, and we're using a cargo strap, but obviously you can use rope or any kind of Dacron. We use the Dacron to fasten the limbs to the table. If you have a larger work party, you can have folks help hold the pig, and you don't need as much ancillary equipment or extra stuff. So go ahead and lower it down, Jake.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, more.
All right. There you go.
I'm simply folding it over and then putting it through, and you put that around the... Take this off.
Yes, sir.
Keep it handy. Now you have a little loop. You can put that through, and you put that around the... Take this off.
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna tie the legs open. We're just gonna make sure that the throat inside is completely detached, so that when we go to take the guts out, there's no connective tissue up there. With a female, you can come right in from the belly button or a little bit above and start slicing through the skin. With a male, you have to cut around the olos, and it can get a little bit more complicated. So I'm gonna start from up here, and the idea is to cut through the skin, but not so far down into it that you cut through the intestines. That's the number one thing. You do not want to cut through the intestines. Do not bust the poop bag or the pee bag. So you're going to come down and go around its nani and around its butt, and you're trying to get down to the hip bone, in which point you'll have to use a more heavy-duty knife or cleaver to separate. With the male, you have to worry about its urinary tract and its olos, and it's a lot more difficult. Female. So I'm just going real slow, and he's putting pressure on the hip bone so that we can see what's going on here. And if you're doing this somewhat right, you'll have the guts hopefully are kind of sunken in, and you'll have room to work your knife. A lot of guys will come in at this point like this and invert the knife. All right, so one of the things you gotta be aware of is that there's a whole bunch of connective tissue up here in the chest cavity, and that's like holds the lungs and everything in place. So you should run your knife around both sides of the diaphragm, I believe, and separate all that connective tissue so that when you go to pull the guts out, you're not fighting all that stuff. So now I'm gonna separate the hip bone real fast. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is Jacob's going to hold the front legs, because I'm going to be pulling really hard on the throat, interiors, and the diaphragm.
Okay.
All right. Now it's a good time to actually look at the pig's intestines and just inspect for worms and discoloration. This one's liver is not in the greatest shape, but I don't see any serious worm action along the...
Looking good.
Yeah. All right, take that trash can away.
Yes, sir.
All right, so the next step is we've degutted it, we've rinsed out the inside, we brought it over into the shade to work, and this is a pretty basic setup. This is just your average come along. I believe they're about $35 at any hardware store, and this is what we're using as a spreader bar. Anybody can make one of these. It's just a 2x3 with a hook in the center and 2 ropes to go around the 2 back legs, and this will allow us to spread the back legs open so that it's easier to process as we're skinning. So we're going to put one end around here, and we're going to cinch this up. We're going to put the other end around the other leg, right behind the dew claw, which is the small claw located kind of near the ankle.
This one?
Yeah, these are dew claws. Okay, and then we engage this up switch on here, and then you can start to crank up. And you want to keep tension on those 2 ropes just to make sure that they don't slip away. Always really inspect the inside for worms or discoloration. If the pig is bad, it's not worth eating, and it's not worth taking a chance, so throw it away. So as you're processing your animal, you're going to find parts that you want to throw away, including the guts or the skin, the head, things like that you're not going to consume. Make sure that you either bury them on your property deep with lime, or by law you're required to take them to the West Hawaii sanitary fill. You cannot dump them at the transfer station. Please don't dump them on back roads. Don't dump them at your enemy's house. Get rid of them the proper legal way. Today we're going to be stripping the meat for smoked meat, and you can do most of that on the carcass, but first you have to remove the skin. And so we're going to skin the pig now. And also you want to make sure that you get any cysts. Cysts often will appear in the armpits and the leg pits area. So as you're processing, just keep an eye out for like nodules and cut those out and throw them away. You don't want to be serving that to anybody. If you are left-handed, you can actually skin counterclockwise on the animal, and it's helpful if you have a friend you can race or whatever. But it's just me and my boy, so we often just go right around the animal. So we like to leave the skin attached on the top so that it kind of hangs like a blanket as we work. And so the very first thing I do is I'll cut a notch right around the ankle, a little bit below the ankle, but I'll leave just a section on the back here to act as a hanging point. And so what I do is I go along this line here, and basically I'm just trying to cut just through the first layer of skin so that I can create a thing to grab. And the idea is to try to keep the hair off of the meat. It's inevitable you're going to get some, but you do not want to ingest the hair. It can cause all kinds of problems in your intestinal tract. We recommend that after you've completely skinned the animal, you take a towel, like a dish towel, and use it to wipe all of the hairs that may have gotten on the meat or the carcass during the process off. Just keep it tight. Keep your left arm pulling on the skin. You can see this pig is pretty healthy. It's got a real thick layer of fat on it, and so we just don't want to waste that. Especially with smoked meat, you want to try to incorporate as much of that in as you can.
It's also worth mentioning that on the fattier pieces, like if you look at this pig, it's got an extremely thick layer of fat. If it's too much, then you can also save it and then use it to balance out future recipes. So like we use it on sausages to balance out our more leaner sausages. If we have a lean pig, then we'll add it into what that's going to be used for.
So what Jacob's doing now is continuing the cut that we started when we were gutting all the way down to the incision on the neck that we made when we were bleeding the pig. The hairs really dull the knife quickly, and surprisingly they're very coarse. So we recommend sharpening your knife constantly. I figure this has got probably 60 pounds of meat finished once it's
for a couple months.
Yeah, it's a lot of smoked meat. If you're just feeding your family and your friends, you should get a typical bag is 2.5 pounds. So if you can get 25 bags, well, that'll fill your freezer up for sure. You can probably keep it in a refrigerator for up to a week or something like that, but any longer than that and it gets dubious. And really, I mean, in a freezer it can stay good for up to a year. There's two different methods you can do with smoking pigs. You can do a cold smoke, which basically is like a way of preserving the meat, but it doesn't cook it. And you can do a hot smoke. The hot smoke will actually cook the pig almost to completion, and then basically you're slicing it up and reheating it in a wok or in a frying pan. That is almost like double cooking it, so you're almost sure to kill any parasites that were in the meat. For the love of Mike, please don't shoot BBs at pigs in the yard. It doesn't kill them, and what it can do is cause blood poisoning. And later on, when somebody like myself comes along to actually rid you of your nuisance pig, we're going to cut this up and we're going to feed our families. BBs and even buckshot from small caliber shotguns can get inside the meat. The pig is not even fazed by it, but when somebody like myself or, you know, my mother-in-law or something takes a bite out of that pork and there's a BB, it can break a tooth, and it can also cause sepsis in the animal. So if you are a landowner who's having trouble maintaining your property, don't use BBs to shoot at the pig, or even buckshots. You're either going to kill it and put it down as fast as and as efficiently as possible, or leave it alone. Okay. Should have been a little lower.
We can shave it.
We use a towel at this point to make sure that there's no errant hairs. The towel picks them up really well. So at this point, we're going to strip the meat off of the pig, right on the pig. We're going to make the smoked meat. So obviously these are the hams or the hips, and the bacons are all over here. This was a sow, so we had to cut off a considerable amount of stuff to get rid of the mammary glands. We're going to smoke the whole pig. So right now we're just cutting strips right off the whole carcass, basically. So they're going from top to bottom. Once we get this all stripped up, we'll cut probably 1 foot, 9 inches to 1 foot long pieces that are approximately 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, as much as 2 inches. And that will go into a cooler with a plastic bag with ice and the different ingredients for smoked meat. Everybody's ingredients are different, but our family uses ginger, garlic, shoyu, brown sugar. And we do a wet marinade. Some folks do dry rubs. Other folks use char siu. I mean, there's no wrong way to make smoked meat, let's put it that way. They all taste great. At this point, I add my sugar. I like to use brown sugar, light or dark, doesn't matter. On top of our sugar, our ginger, and our garlic, we're pouring in a gallon of shoyu. The shoyu supplies the salt, which is what helps as a preservative. It also melts down the sugars. Once you got all the meat in, or even most of it, you want to use the bag to kind of mix the ingredients in. So I'll close the top and I'll just kind of loamy it back and forth. And then I'll coil it up, tie a knot around it, make sure most of the air is out, and then load it up with the ice. I like to use, for a cooler this size, 2 block ice on the bottom and 2 bag ice on the top. And I let it marinate overnight, and then tomorrow, probably in the evening, I'll load it into the smokehouse, hang it with paper clips most times, and then smoke it overnight. I like a long smoke. Low temperature, long smoke. So thanks so much for watching, and we're going to try to do a couple more videos. Hopefully we can do one for the emu and one for Lau Lau's and whatnot. So thanks again. Aloha.